Well, here we are. It's the eve of a new Viking season. Or really the day it'll be the day of a new Viking season by the time I actually get this damn thing up. You know? It seems like it's kind of this way every year, but this is a really crucial year for this franchise. And there's been a lot of bad vibes. You know, I've said this in other areas and other videos and things, but there's been just a lot of bad vibes with this franchise for basically since the beginning of training camp. And it could be confined to that. You know, just because there's been COVID drama, it doesn't mean there's going to be COVID drama in the regular season. Just because there's been a couple major injury issues, going through camp, it doesn't mean that it's going to occur during the regular season too. It doesn't. It's hard not to think that it will, but you know, you know, you know, by nature, by my Vikings fan nature, I'm not pessimistic. By my life standards, I'm very pessimistic. But as far as Vikings go, I always look at things, or tend to look at things from a very hopeful, optimistic, purple colored glasses type of perspective, which puts me at odds with an increasingly large percentage of this fan base, which is just devoted to being angry and negative all the time. And, they're not waiting for the results of the Cincinnati game or of any game to just rage. I mean, just as an example, today, the Vikings announced that they were bringing up Mannion for the active roster for Sunday, which was expected, and of course they're going to do that. And people just lost their fucking minds that how could you bring up Mannion? He sucks. He's worse than mine. Hopefully he doesn't ever play. I mean, the way that works, this isn't meant to be like a Mannion video or anything, but they can bring him up to the roster a few times before they would have to like officially put him on the 53, like the constant 53. And maybe by then Mondel will have impressed enough that he's taken over as the backup, and I think we'll all hope that that's how it is. But it's just a non-issue. Like, there's things to worry about with this team. There absolutely are, and I wish I wasn't going into this season from a much more wary and pessimistic view, because I think on paper this could be a really, really great team. And I mean that more than just hey, where maybe we'll sneak into the playoffs and maybe upset someone in the playoffs. But like a team that could really make a serious run at this. And they're getting absolutely no respect in that regard nationally. I mean, I was looking at a whole bunch of national writers and national pundits and experts, so-called experts, and I saw very few who were even picking them to make the playoffs as a wild card. And I don't think I saw a single person who was picking them to win the division. I mean, they're across the board. It's Green Bay, and I can't be mad about that because I'm picking Green Bay to win the division and picking the Vikings to get in as a wild card. So I'm, but there is something to that historically with the Vikings that when they're kind of flying under the radar, they seem to do better. They seem to have better seasons. 2017, I don't think people were expecting them to do what they did. I mean, obviously not, certainly not after the injuries. 2019, I don't think people were expecting them to do what they did. Like, it's the years where it does tend to be the years where they have the big expectations, the lofty expectations, that they disappoint. Um, so in that respect, I think it's good. It's good for the fight. Like, let all the talk be about Tampa Bay and Green Bay and the Rams and Dallas and what's going to happen in New Orleans and what's going to happen with some of the new quarterbacks, and we'll just be off in the little corner here doing our thing. Um, and I think the Vikings could really surprise a lot of people in that respect. I mean, this isn't the year you want to have you know you know August drama and August injuries and all this other stuff, because you're going into a season with a really tough schedule, and they have a tough schedule. There's no doubt about it. Um, and I think week 1 is one of their easier games. So if they were to stumble in Cincinnati, that's really going to be bad, because you can't kick away easy wins when you're facing out of 17 games they've got about a dozen that are against teams that are either certain playoff contenders or possible playoff contenders. You've got a couple Detroit games, you got a Cincinnati game, you got a Carolina game. You know, depends if you want to lump Chicago in there. There aren't a lot of soft spots in the schedule, and I think the Vikings are going to be able to manage it somewhat. But you can't stumble. You can't drop any of the easy ones. Maybe at most you can kind of kick away one of the quote unquote easy games. But they have a very tough schedule. I think they absolutely have to at least come out of these opening 2 games 1-1. Because then you come home, you got Seattle and Cleveland, and I think both of those could be wins, but they could also both be losses. It's just the way it is. And I know that's dumb to say, because every game could be a win or a loss, but like the Vikings could play pretty good throughout the first 4 games and come out of it 1-3. It's not impossible. But I think people are underestimating. In fact, I know they're underestimating just how bad this defense got last year and why it got that way. Because I think I think like maybe nationally and even locally to a degree, I think people just think it was just Janiel Hunter was out, and that was the only thing. No, it was not. I mean, the guys were thrown out there on defense for week 1. There's almost nobody left from who was even out there in like December of last year. It's Harrison Smith and who else? I mean, there's a couple backups still on the roster who are out there, but we've all forgotten most of the names. I mean, most of the guys we had playing out there, certainly by December, they're either buried on depth charts, either with us or somewhere else in the league, or they're out of the league. Like there's a few of them who I don't even think are on rosters anymore. And people are like, oh well, they're just signed a bunch of free agents, and why they were free agents, so they're not going to be any good. Fuck that shit. They don't have to all be all pros. We don't need Patrick Peterson and Breland and Woods and Tomlinson and Weatherly and Alexander. We don't need all these guys to be all pros. It's so underappreciated just how bad it was last year. Like, we had nothing. We had garbage out there. We had guys who were either so raw that, you know, they should have never seen the field last year, especially in a year where there was no, you know, proper training camp and off season, or it's just guys off the fucking scrap heap who really had no business even being in the NFL. And people also forget, because when you have a losing season and a non-playoff season, you know, the narrative just becomes that you're a failure. Zimmer was working a fucking miracle in the middle of the season last year. Like, when they went on that win streak, and you can say, ooh, they only beat bad teams on some of those wins. So what? They also went in the Lambeau Field and beat a goddamn team that had the number 1 seed. So don't give me that shit that, you know, it was just an easy schedule. Like, they went, you know, they were working, you know, a miracle with what they had. And, you know, it didn't work out in December. Like, once the Kendricks injury hit, that was the last straw. There was no chance after that. You know, that was just like, it was like one thing too many. But he's back. You know, Barr will be back at some point, I think. I mean, if he's not, I don't know. I don't know what's going on there if he's not back. But, you know, we've got the improvement on the defensive line is going to be unbelievable. It's going to be like nothing everyone's ever seen. You know, and that's going to help the secondary. Even if some of the veterans we signed aren't what they used to be, they don't need to be, because, you know, the performance of a secondary is incredibly dependent on what the pass rush does, and we're going to have a hell of a pass rush with Hunter back, a lot more depth, way more push inside. You know, it's going to be amazing. You know, and I'm not saying they're going to be like 2017. That's a very unfair expectation to say that they're going to be just like 2017, because, I mean, for one thing, most of the players out there are different. But, you know, let's say this defense gets into the top 12 or something. That's huge. They were one game out of the playoffs last year with arguably the worst defense that the Vikings have ever had. And, you know, on the other side of the ball, look, everyone's going to talk about the offensive line. I'm curious to see how the offensive line plays. I think they're going to be pretty solid. You know, the unit we're going to see here for at least the first few weeks, we didn't see them a lot in the preseason, but what we saw, I thought, looked pretty good. And that was with, you know, play calling that wasn't exactly being done to, like, you know, to kind of like show off what they can do. But it doesn't need to be. I mean, it just needs, just like the defense just needs to be improved to a degree. The offensive line just needs to be improved to a degree, because that was garbage. It's been garbage. It's an ongoing problem. Obviously, we're all disappointed that Darisaw isn't going to be out there for a little while. I'm on record, I think, saying that I think he's going to be in there certainly before mid-season, and I think he will be. But I think Rashad Hill will be okay for a while. I think he can man the fort for a while. I think Oliudo will be fine until Wyatt Davis is ready, and maybe they can even do something different with Udo if Davis is ready, because I know Udo can play tackle, so who knows, maybe they could even end up switching him out there. But I don't think they want to do too much moving guys around like that. But and we've got a lot of talent on offense. I mean, it sucks that we lost Irv Smith. So the tight end position isn't going to give us what we thought. I think Conklin's pretty good, though. He really looked good last year after Rudolph went out. Conklin was really good. And beyond him, we don't know what we're going to get from Herndon. We don't know what we're going to get from Dylan, or that other guy that we picked up, whose name escapes me. But, we've got Dalvin, we've got Thielen, we've got Jefferson. We'll see what happens with some of the wide receiver depth. We'll see if that's, a lot of like preseason hype, or if guys like Osborne and Smith Marset and even D. Westbrook, who we didn't see, but who is going to be active and he is going to be playing, at least in the return game. If those guys are, all out there, we should. I mean, we certainly have the players to have a very, very good offense. And we had a really good offense last year, even though, we had offensive line issues. And even though we had an offensive coordinator who was practically sabotaging games from my perspective at times. And that's another big, a big unknown, is Clint Kubiak. What are we going to finally see? Because we didn't see anything in the preseason. They weren't calling plays. That was just pure vanilla shit. So we don't know yet kind of what his thing's going to be. Is it going to be just like Gary Kubiak? Is it going to be a lot of, uncreative runs and uncreative passes and really ill-timed play calls that kind of, just sabotage things? Because I really thought that the biggest issue, last year with the elder Kubiak was just the late game situations and the play calling, especially like the Tennessee game and the Dallas game, like in the Chicago game too. Like I didn't know what they were doing. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why they were calling plays the way they were calling them in those situations. It's like they were calling plays to deliberately expose their offensive line for being a problem. And I think the best we were going to hope for, probably at least for a while, is just an average offensive line. And you can win with an average offensive line. Most teams out there don't have great offensive lines, but are you going to call plays and design plays to kind of mask some of those issues, or is it going to be, hey, we need you to give Kirk a clean pocket for 10 seconds on every pass? Because that's not really going to work. But I think if you give Kirk the time, he's going to fucking light up some teams this year. A lot of them. I think he's in a position where he could. I mean, this is almost like it's not technically a contract year for Kirk, but it kind of is, because there's decisions that are going to have to be made after this season, by like next March, about what they're going to do going forward with Kirk. And are they gonna run this back for another run, or maybe even another few years? And I think if Kirk lights it up this year, and look, the COVID thing, I've said my piece on that. Everyone said their piece on that. It's a problem. I'm completely against Kirk's stance on this. I think it's completely asinine. But the fact is, there's nothing they're going to be able to do about it. And we're at the point now where it's you got to just evaluate him as a football player, on the field football player, and what's he going to do. And I've been beating the drum for 3 years that Kirk Cousins is a much, much better quarterback than almost any Vikings fans and basically any Vikings media or national media will give him credit for. I mean, quarterback rankings mean nothing. It's just clickbait bullshit. But some of the quarterbacks I see ranked ahead of Kirk Cousins, what are these people fucking smoking? I don't understand it. I think if he gets a decent offensive line in front of him this season, like he had a pretty decent offensive line in 2019, like that, they were pretty decent, except for when they played like a really really good defensive front, and then they got kind of clobbered like the playoff game in San Francisco. But generally, they were able to really protect Kirk, and he was lighting teams up most of the year. If they can get that, I'm not asking for them to be the Cowboys of the 90s with the greatest offensive line ever. I'm just talking about being an average, middle-of-the-road offensive line with Kirk's abilities and the players around him. This could be the best offense the Vikings have had, certainly since the good Favre year. And if you pair that with a vastly improved defense, like, I don't know how they couldn't at least be in the playoffs. So to see that like nobody's picking them to even make the playoffs for the most part, and some of the teams being picked at like I think I saw more people picking the Giants to make the playoffs than the Vikings. Where is this coming from? I just, but again, maybe it's good to just be under the radar. Don't have the expectations. Let all the other high profile teams with the superstar quarterbacks and the big markets and everything get all the attention, and we'll just do our thing. And this is a huge year because this we going into this year. This is a year where if things go bad, we might see the whole thing blown up. I don't want that to happen, certainly. I mean, even if this team kind of stumbles again, I'm not gonna be one of these people who's screaming for firings every week. I think that's just a horrible way to go through a season and follow a team. But just realistically, if let's say they go 8-9 and miss the playoffs, we're probably going to be looking for a new coach. We might be looking for a new GM. Yeah, we might be changing the quarterback. I mean, it's just, that's just the nature of the beast, nature of the business. Like, if the coach misses playoffs 2 straight years, most of the time that coach is out, unless they got like rings. Even that's not going to guarantee anything. They fired Doug Peterson like 3 years after winning a Super Bowl. That's just how the league works. And I think everyone is really motivated to I guess if you want to say to save their jobs, but to really keep this thing going, because like we could be at the middle point of an era, or we could be at the end of an era. And I certainly hope we're not at the end of an era. I'm hoping this is at least like kind of like the, like with Dennis Green, like we got to a point with Dennis Green where it was like, it's time to move on. But then we got like 98 and beyond, which, we had a couple of, we had some great seasons there. And I'm hoping we have that kind of thing here with Zimmer, because God, I would hate it if the Zimmer era ended with like a couple of bad seasons that missed the playoffs, and just kind of make it look like he has been worse than he is, because I just think he's incredibly underappreciated, incredibly underrated. I think Spielman's been incredibly underappreciated. Obviously, I think Cousins has been incredibly underrated and underappreciated. I'm not saying we're living the life here as Vikings fans, but we've got some really good guys, some guys running the team, I think, are really good at what they do. They've had some fucking terrible luck. They've had some stuff that they've done that's caused problems, but you know, I just think it sucks that they don't get the credit. Well, I'm rambling here. I'm not sure if I'm even doing a season review. This has been very rambling, and it's been very long. 25 minutes? My God. Um, but, you know, I do think the Vikings, my official pick is the Vikings getting the playoffs. I got them going 10-7, getting into the playoffs as a wild card. And officially, I have them winning a playoff game, but I don't have them going to the Super Bowl because, well, as has been talked about elsewhere, the NFL wouldn't have interest in that, and ultimately the NFL decides when those things are involved. So, but so I go into this season wary, pessimistic, but still a little hopeful, and just excited to see what we can do, because if things click, this can be one of the best teams in the NFL. And I'm not just saying that because I have purple colored glasses on. I really believe that. I really believe that this team could be great if we just get a little luck. We never do, but if we just got a little bit of good fortune, injury luck, COVID luck, balls bouncing our way, I think this can be a really great team. And starting against Cincinnati here, I'm going to be pulling for them like always. And I mean, as I said, I'm rambling, but let's fucking go. Let's upset the apple cart. Let's upset what the NFL wants this season to be for, as far as who wins and who goes to the Super Bowl and all this shit. Let's just play a big old spoiler for what the NFL wants, and let's just do our thing, because this is a hell of a team on paper, and I think they could be a hell of a team on the field.